Yes, Geordies, welcome back to another episode. Hope everyone's well. And do you know what we're going to do today? Just relax. Let's just breathe for one moment, please, because we've had all the saga of Hugo Ekitike's come in and we had a bid rejected, and then Liverpool entering the talks and saying, we want Alexander Isak. If not, we're going to go in for Hugo Ekitike. So we've done a reaction video for all that. So we do have an interesting video coming up today because, again, I do want to talk about this Alexander Isak situation and also the Darwin Nunez situation and why the Saudis are going in for him. Then we're going to talk about Sean Longstaff leaving and why we could be interested in Connor Gallagher. What would he bring in? How does he compare to our midfield three? But before we do all that, I want to know your thoughts on this Alexander Isak situation and also this Hugo Ekitike situation, because in my opinion, we're in pole position. I spoke about Liverpool trying to put a power play on Newcastle United and try to bully us yesterday. But you know what? We hold all the cards and we're in a very, very healthy and good position because we've got their number one target, and that is Alexander Isak. Now, Alexander Isak is still under contract and they have to pay over the odds if they want to get him this summer. And I can't see Liverpool doing that. So I'm going to make a prediction. And this is a prediction, so it might be wrong. And normally I am wrong. But I do believe that Alexander Isak will be playing in black and white next season. And I also believe that Hugo Ekitike will be playing in black and white next season. It's a bold prediction, but if you want to be a big club, you've got to act boldly. Now, Fabrizio Romano has come out and said that Liverpool confirmed Newcastle intention to present a record bid for Alexander Isak. The proposal is ready for a 120 million package, but will only be sent if Newcastle change their stance. But their stance has always been not for sale. So Alexander Isak is not for sale, whatever happens. So unless Liverpool bid a ridiculous amount of money, and I'm talking 200 million, then Alexander Isak will be playing in black and white next season. Now, the only reason Alexander Isak will not be playing in black and white next season is if he forces a move. Now, we won't be handing a transfer request because it would be absolutely idiotic for him to hand in a transfer request because he's still under contract. What tends to happen when players leave clubs is either the buyer pays out the remainder of the contract or the seller will pay out some of his contract in order for him to leave. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for argument's sake, Liverpool bid 200 million for Alexander Isak and Newcastle want to accept it. Alexander Isak's now in a position to say, I'll only go to Liverpool if you pay me 30% of the remainder of my contract. That tends to go on in football, but I can't see Alexander Isak being that type, and I can't see Alexander Isak forcing a move. Now, one thing to consider in all this situation is, I know for a fact Liverpool would have approached Alexander Isak's representatives, such as his agents or the man that's could broker the deal or somebody involved in the deal. That goes on in football. We've seen it with Tottenham and Nottingham Forest. It happens all the time. So I've got no doubt that secretly Liverpool have spoken to Alexander Isak's agent. It happens. You've just got to mature to understand that, right? Now, I'm not saying we should go out there and tell Liverpool to do one and just be absolutely nasty to them, because it's within Newcastle United's best interest to keep a good relationship with every club possible. I don't think we understand the importance of good relationships in football. It's all about connections, because sometimes you might need a favour, and that favour might have to come from Liverpool. So I think there's a way you can be assertive but respectful in the same way. Now, again, when I talk about agents, me personally, I did not understand the power and the movement that agents have in football. It is absolutely extraordinary. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. It's story time with Mango. And I don't think I should be saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways because I'm not going to tell you which players it involved. But I've openly admitted one of my good mates is an agent. Now, he's not a super agent, but these super agents have so much power in football. It's unbelievable, because my agent was brokering a deal. So he knew the club, and he knew an agent that the club that was representing the player that the club wanted. So the club reached out to him to reach out that agent to see if there would be interest, because if the club reach out that agent directly, then they're not allowed to do so. So they reached out to him and said, get in touch with this agent, see if the player's interested, see how much it would cost, blah, blah, blah. So that's what my guy did. Now, the other club coincidentally were open to sell. So they wanted to buy this player. They were willing to sell this player. The player was willing to leave. Now, the sticking point was they couldn't agree a fee. My agent told us this story. They couldn't agree a fee and it looked like the deal was off. And one bloke made one phone call and the deal got done like that. George Mendes made a phone call to the selling club and the deal got done like that. He didn't take any money from it. I don't know what was said, but that is the power that these super agents have. And I don't have a clue what was said. It could be something to do with a different transfer. We're not going to do this transfer if you don't do that transfer. Well, whatever it might be, I do not know. But within 24 hours, we got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano. So this is what I'm saying. You need to keep good relationships with not only clubs these days, agents. Even if you don't like that agent as a person, it's within your best interest to keep a good relationship. So I'm not saying be nasty to Liverpool and say, stop bullying us, you're not having Alexander Isak. Be very smart in the way you deal with them. Be assertive. That absolutely, I believe in business, you've got to be assertive, but you can do that in a respectful way. And that's the point I'm trying to make. We can be assertive. We can be sure that we're a big club, but do it in a respectful manner, because you never know. In a couple of weeks' time, maybe a couple of years' time, we might need a favour from Liverpool and they might turn around and say, remember how you treated us with Alexander Isak? So you've got to keep good relationships. So what I'm saying is Newcastle United are being diligent and continuing in dialogue with Liverpool. That's probably the reason why. What I think is happening here is Alexander Isak wants to be in the best position possible when we open contract negotiations. Now, Alexander Isak can go to the table and say, Liverpool want me. What are you going to pay? Are you going to pay me what I'm worth? If you're valuing me at 150 million to 200 million, I want to be paid on my market value in my contract. So that puts Alexander Isak in a better position and a stronger position when it comes to contract negotiations. Now, why it's Newcastle's incentive to get Alexander Isak on another contract, even if it is just an extra year, is because next summer his value will still be the same, because he'll still have 2 to 3 years left on his contract. Now, if he doesn't sign a contract this summer, he's only got 1 to 2 years left on his contract, and that's when Liverpool can say, well, he's got a year less on his contract, so we're paying less money from next summer. Does that make sense? So that's what all the talks, all the negotiations will be going around. So Liverpool might have the intention of signing Alexander Isak. Who wouldn't want to sign Alexander Isak? He's absolutely fantastic and he would elevate any starting 11. So Liverpool I've got no doubt Liverpool are interested in Alexander Isak. And if there was a position where Newcastle were open to sell, they would absolutely try and get that deal done. Now, Newcastle are standing firm, and we need to be bold in this transfer window. And that's my opinion. We need to be bold because we're at that point where we need to make that next step. That next step is our biggest step, and that is to become one of these top 6 clubs, even though, in my opinion, we're already in it. But in terms of the audience around the world, we're not. So if we want to make that next step, we need to be bold in the transfer market. And that means, if that means paying release clauses, that means paying release clauses. But it also means keeping your best players. And that is exactly what we're trying to do with Alexander Isak. And this shows ambition to those like Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali. We're standing firm and saying, you know what, Liverpool, you're not bullying us. We're keeping our man. Then that is exactly what I want Newcastle United to happen. And another reason why I think Newcastle United will be playing in black and white next season is because as this happened. Napoli have informed Liverpool that they are not going ahead with the Darwin Nunez deal, as they will sign Lorenzo Luca instead of Darwin Nunez. So I said in my last video, Liverpool would bid over the odds for Alexander Isak if they sell Darwin Nunez. Then the need to bring in a striker. And their number 1 target is Alexander Isak. Let's, for argument's sake, Napoli paid 70 million for Darwin Nunez and took him off the wage bill. That frees up extra money for them to bid for Alexander Isak. And I've got no doubt that bid would probably entail somewhere of 130 million. Newcastle United would probably consider that. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because in fact, Darwin Nunez could actually leave Liverpool. And that is because apparently the Saudi Pro League will make an initial bid for Darwin Nunez. Now that Napoli are close to signing Luca as a new striker, it was Darwin's favourite destination, but now it looks like he's only got Saudi Arabia. Now, just remind me who we're owned by again? The PIF? Why are they even entering or tempting to sign Darwin Nunez? Because that puts Liverpool in a better position and more money to bid for Alexander Isak. So why don't we just be a little bit cleverer and just say, why can't Darwin Nunez just stay at Liverpool? Do you know what I mean? That means Alexander Isak definitely stays at Newcastle United. We keep our striker. We're not enhancing or giving Liverpool the incentive to bid for Alexander Isak, regardless if we say he's not for sale. Because I know if Darwin Nunez leaves Liverpool, even if we're saying Alexander Isak is not for sale, Liverpool will put a bid in. The only reason they're not putting a bid in is because Darwin Nunez is still on the books. So we should not be facilitating this Alexander Isak potential bid. And by buying Darwin Nunez to a Saudi club, That is exactly what is happening. So this is where we have to be a little bit more clever. And now there's also been an outgoing for Newcastle United, and that is Sean Longstaff. It looks like there is a deal in principle for Sean Longstaff to join Leeds United, and it does say there's going to be a here we go soon. So it looks like Sean Longstaff will leave. Now, the first thing I want to say is thank you, Sean Longstaff, because he wears his heart on his sleeve. He gives everything for the club. He stuck with us through tough moments, just bring us out of tough moments. And who can forget that moment against PSG? What a dream come true for the lad. And I've got no bad words about Sean Longstaff. We've just outgrown him as a football club. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time with players. And I actually think he deserves a club like Leeds, somebody with a passionate fan base that'll understand his game. And that is just wearing his heart on his sleeve, giving 100% for his club, diving into tackles, fighting for every lost cause. And that's exactly what you're going to get for Sean Longstaff. And I actually think it's a good move for both Leeds United and him. But what this move does is it does two things. First thing, it gives us extra money in order to bid for Hugo Ekitike. Now, I don't think we should spend £86 million on him because I don't think he's worth that much. The highest I would spend on Ekitike is £75 million. And I generally believe Eintracht Frankfurt would accept £75 million. Now, we had a bid of 69 million rejected, so we're very close to that 75 million, and selling Sean Longstaff for 12 million just opens up that extra bit of wriggle room when it comes to negotiations for Newcastle United. We know we've been talking to their representatives for weeks now, and they've actually been to our training camp in Austria speaking to Newcastle United, so the deal is very close. Eintracht want to sell, and I've said this before, they've already got the replacement, they've already got their youngsters who are coming through, who are going to be their next big sells, and they want to sell their players when they're high in demand. So this whole Hugo Ekitike situation, Alexander Isak situation could be done by Eintracht trying to convince Newcastle United that they need to buy Hugo Ekitike quickly to want to sign him. Now, the second thing it confirms is that we will sign a midfielder because we cannot go into the season with this squad, especially with Champions League football, and also take Sean Longstaff out of that. And that's what we'll look like. We'll only have 5 senior midfielders, and we play with 3 with them unless Eddie Howe changes his tactics. So that squad depth is concerning. I can't lie about it because we need a right centre-back, preferably a centre-back who's versatile, can play left centre-back or right centre-back would be ideal. Even with Sean Longstaff there, I think we need a midfielder. So with Sean Longstaff leaving, we need at least 2 midfielders, in my opinion. And again, versatile midfielders, somebody that's comfortable in ideally all 3 roles, but if not, certainly 2 roles. And then we also need a striker. Obviously, we're in talks with Hugo Ekitike. Liverpool have made an Isak approach, so we don't know what's going to happen there. We can all speculate, but in truth, we don't know what's going to happen because we're not part of the conversations. So what I'm telling you now is, yes, we can talk about, I think Isak staying. I think Hugo Ekitike is going to sign. I think Liverpool might sign Hugo Ekitike. Everybody's got their outcomes. But in truth, we've got absolutely no idea what conversations are taking place and what's happening behind the scenes. But what I do know is if Sean Longstaff does leave, we need a midfielder. Now, the midfielder we have been linked to is Connor Gallagher. And that got us thinking, why are we going after a profile like Connor Gallagher? And that made us think about the Champions League and what we're going to experience in the Champions League next season. And it made us think, what I always say is, we need to do better at controlling games against the ball. And this is how I'm going to explain it to you. So in the Champions League next season and some Premier League games, let's be brutally honest, there will be moments where we don't see the ball during long periods of the game. We're not going to be the best team in the Champions League. So we're going to have to, what managers use as a terminology, which I hate using, is suffering. And I'm not going to use the terminology suffering. Enzo Maresca uses the word suffering a lot. Ruben Amorim uses the word suffering a lot, and I disagree with that word. What I like to say is being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and I think that's what Newcastle United need to be. And I will get on to exactly why we're looking for a Connor Gallagher profile very shortly. But firstly, we're going to spend a lot of time without the ball, so we need to be comfortable without the ball. Now, I always say, if anybody's watched my match reviews last season, probably didn't, because I wasn't as big then and videos weren't getting as many views. So I spoke about the importance of being good and controlling games against the ball. Now, this is where I want Newcastle United to improve. We've seen signs of it brilliantly done last season when we played Arsenal away from home and at home when they had more possession, but we were in control of the game. Now, there's a fine art of controlling games without the ball. So against the ball, we are actually very good. We're pressing triggers are good. We can dictate the game. but we don't always do it. And I think this is crucial in Champions Leagues, especially when you go away from home in hostile environments. You need to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So when you think of Connor Gallagher as a footballer, first of all, he's not cute, he's not clever, he's not really intricate. What I mean by that is he won't get a hold of the game and dictate the rhythm of the game with the ball at his feet. He's not that type of player. The type of player that Connor Gallagher is, his style of play is high energy midfielder who games thrives on intensity, verticality, and relentless work rate. So he's going to give you legs. He will run his socks off, and he is exactly the type of player that Eddie Howe loves to play with and loves to develop. We've got runners. We've got really aggressive players in our midfield, in our squad. He's known for his non-stop energy, who covers immense ground, presses aggressively across all three zones. He's suited to high pressing systems, which is what Newcastle United are. Gallagher is what I call a jumper. So a jumper is somebody that is not as disciplined when it comes to pressing. He always wants to win the ball. He will go aggressively into a press, and that is a jumper. He will jump out of his position in order to win the ball as quickly and as early as possible. So that's his type of game out of possession. Now, he also has decent movement, always shows to the ball. He wants the ball, and that's what I like in a midfielder. I hate a midfielder that goes hiding, even in uncomfortable situations, what I was talking about earlier. So he likes to arrive late in the penalty area, and he's comfortable across all three zones. He's comfortable in the defensive zone, the middle third, and the final third at times. So he can play as that box-to-box midfielder. He can play as that pressing number 10. He can even play deeper in a double pivot, but personally, I don't like him as a lone six. I don't think he can play that lone six role. And the reason being is because I see that as one of these areas for improvement. But when it comes to passing, he prefers quick vertical passes to advanced play rather than steady build-up. So he's not that player that is dictating the rhythm of the game, slowing the game down in order for your teammates to get into possession. Once he's in possession, he wants to play quickly. It's like his fast twitch fibers are always active. That's how Connor Gallagher plays. So when it comes to tactical fit, he excels in systems that value high pressing and midfield dynamism. So the reason why I don't think he can play that lone six role is because you need to be extremely press resistant and very comfortable under pressure. Now, when it comes to tight spaces and receiving in the first phase, Gallagher does have a poor first touch under pressure. So he needs to sharpen his first touch, but also his scanning and his awareness in order to avoid turnovers, especially here in deeper midfield. So that's why I don't think he can play the lone six. Now, he could play a double pivot. We need to play him in a double pivot with somebody that's a good receiver, like Sandro Tonali, for example, or Bruno Guimaraes. So getting back to this page, and I'm trying to envision what Eddie Howe is looking at when he looks at Connor Gallagher. And when you look at Newcastle United against the ball, we change our pressing depending on the situation. What I mean by that is in chaotic moments, we'll press aggressively. You'll see us go to a high up in a man-to-man press, trying to win the ball back in the final third. The reason we do that is because the opposition is not in their structure. So if you can overturn the ball, you're in a better position to create a better opportunity because there's more space for you to exploit, and it's in a chaotic moment. Newcastle do their best work in chaotic moments. So we want to overturn the ball as high and as early as possible in chaotic moments, because that's when we capture the opposition out of their shape. Now, when it's in structured moments, so what I mean by structured moments, if the tempo's dead slow and the opposition are playing between the back four, we're happy just to sit in a 4-4-2 shape. Now, the forwards will do a two-man press. What I mean by a two-man press is very gentle. You'll often see Isak just jogging towards a ball, but what he's doing there is he's blocking out passing lanes. So you'll see him blocking out the pass from centre-back to the full-back or the midfield. So he's in that triangle trying to block out those two passes. That's what I mean by a two-man press, because you're blocking out two men. That's pretty much what it means. So once the ball moves into midfield, we begin to press aggressively. So when they move the ball into that middle third, that's when you see Tonali pressing, Joe Linton pressing, Bruno Guimaraes pressing. That's what Connor Gallagher's going to give you, because he's a jumper. He likes to jump out from his shape to win the ball back. And that's when Newcastle United win most of their balls back and overturn the ball, either in the first stage in chaotic moments or the second stage in structured moments. So we need a midfielder that is comfortable in one-on-one situations, that's also comfortable in uncomfortable situations against the ball, but can also dictate against the ball. And that's what Connor Gallagher gives you. That's where he's at his best, because he's a workaholic. He'll wear his heart on his sleeve, plays with intensity, and covers an enormous amount of ground. So that's what Eddie Howe likes off the ball. And I kind of feel like this signing is with the Champions League in mind, or this signing when we need to see a game out and we need somebody that can just have that little bit of sharpness against the ball to win back possession in crucial moments. That's what you get from Connor Gallagher. And of course, it's not all about against the ball. He's not just a workaholic that'll just always overturn the ball. He's going to give you something in possession as well. And what he does do brilliantly is when he wins the ball back, doesn't dwell on the ball. If he sees a pass, he will play that pass. And that's what I like about Connor Gallagher. Now, I actually think it depends how much we spend on him. And I actually think Connor Gallagher might not want to come to us. And I'll tell you why. Not because we're not a big club, not because we haven't got that pull. It's because we've actually got 3 good midfielders. In his mind, I don't think he thinks he can come in and be a first team starter straight away. And I actually like Connor Gallagher, but I don't think he's worth 40 million. And I think Atletico Madrid, this is what I've heard, I don't know how true it is, that they want to at least recoup the 40 million that they spent on him. So he's going to cost in region about 40 million. Now, personally, I think there's going to be better value for money that'll give you more in possession, maybe not more out of possession, but somewhere similar out of possession that you're going to get with Connor Gallagher for a cheaper price. So I don't know if this deal can get done. One, because Connor Gallagher doesn't want to play second fiddle to Bruno, Joe Linton or Tonali because we all know their number 1 choice. And 2, because Atletico might just outprice Connor Gallagher. But if he did come, I did compare him to Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton just to see what he would give us. Now, when it comes to Joe Linton, could he play the Joe Linton role? In my opinion, yes. But he would play in a slightly different way because he doesn't have that physicality Joe Linton brings. So Connor Gallagher is more transitional. He's high pressing. He jumps out midfield positions to win the ball. And his game is built around intensity and verticality. Whereas Joe Linton is more of a physical disciplinary. He wins duels, carries and lends the ball off, but he adds structure at that midfield battle. And what I mean by structure is he's a little bit more disciplined than Connor Gallagher. So when our left back gets forward, Joe Linton is very happy to go out wide and cover in those left back areas, just to sit in there and block the space if he has to. Now, I can't see Connor Gallagher doing that because as soon as the ball goes loose, Connor Gallagher's after the ball. And obviously it goes without saying, Joe Linton's more physical, so it means he's more dominant in defensive actions. And again, I got us thinking, could he play the Bruno role? And again, I think he could play the Bruno role, but again, he would play it slightly differently. And the reason why I say slightly differently, because Connor Gallagher thrives in quick plays. He's a pressing machine and he arrives in the box late and drives transitions. And again, his game is built on intensity and energy, whereas Bruno's a little bit more of a metronome. He controls the tempo. What I like about Bruno is he's got that ability where when he receives a ball, it's almost like the time slows down. He's got that ability just to slow the game down, but in a good way because it allows others to get into advanced positions. Now, Connor Gallagher's a little bit more snappy and sharper than what Bruno is. So Bruno's a little bit more structured and cultured. So he could play the Bruno role because he offers that pressing intensity as in an advanced state. He does it in a different way, if that makes sense, because it's all about first touch passing, give and goes, whereas Bruno is a little bit more cultured in possession. Then I got us thinking, could he play the Sandro Tonali role? And I don't think he could actually play this role as well as the other two. And the reason being is because I don't think he's got that 360 vision that you need to play as a lone 6. Tonali certainly has that, but he's also a press, jump and arrive type of player. And I spoke about that importance of jumping out of position and trying to win the ball back. For high turnovers, he drives transitions in possession, and his intensity suits in high pressing system. So by statistics and by what I'm saying, it looks like he can play that role, but there's just that one thing when it comes to receiving angles that does let him down. Whereas Tonali is a more controlled presser. He presses in pressing triggers, all calculated in his mind. He's a very, very intelligent off the ball presser. But what Sandro gives you over Connor Gallagher in possession is that ability to dictate tempo. He distributes with precision and adds a little bit more structure in possession. But they both provide that relentless ground cover, but Tonali does it in a more disciplined way. So we may as well just compare them by statistics, and by the statistics you think to yourself, he could probably do all three roles. Now again, he would do it differently than what Bruno Guimaraes is because he's not as creative. At times he will find that creative spark and play that through pass or split a defense, but he doesn't do it often enough. Now he's comfortable at taking on a man, but when it comes to progressiveness, he's not so good in the progressive is what Bruno is. So again, he would play the role in a different way. When it comes to Joe Linton, I think this is where Connor Gallagher would probably be his most comfortable because he's got that ability to arrive in the box late like Joe Linton does. He's snappy into challenges. Now the difference when it comes to the defensive side of the game, Connor Gallagher's more snappy into challenges. Joe Linton's more physical, and that's the difference between the two. Then you look at Sandro Tonali, and again, on paper, it looks like he can play that role. But when you watch it from the eye test, again, that 360 vision just lets him down. Needs to understand he's pressing triggers when he's getting pressed, but also his scanning needs to improve. And I think Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes receiving on the half turn is very impressive. So I do think we'll bring in a midfielder, but will it be Connor Gallagher? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Would you be happy to sign Connor Gallagher? And the last thing I want to talk about is this is what our squad should look like going into a Champions League campaign. Now, I've just used linked names and names that could offer us value for money just to visually see what our squad should look like. Now, there's different options out there. There's plenty of players I could have used, but I just picked these ones specifically because these are the ones that we've been linked with. Trafford, I think will get done eventually. I just think they're haggling over a couple of million. Scalvini or Mark Gahey, I predict that will come over the line. Then midfielders. I think we need 2 midfielders, especially if Sean Longstaff's leaving. And then Hugo Ekitike. We definitely need a striker. But when it comes to the wide areas, I think we're very comfortable now. We've got Anthony Elanga, Jacob Murphy, Anthony Gordon, Barnes, even a Sulak can play on the right if we needs be, or the left if needs be. So we've got that versatility in the wide areas. We just need centre-back, 2 midfielders, in a striker, and I think we can go into next season quietly confident. But again, guys, we've spoke about a lot in this video, and we've done it in a different way. Now, I'm going to continue the scouting videos, but I want to wait and see what happens with Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike before we'll do the next scouting video. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you make of the whole situation? I'm relaxed because Isak's our player. He's under contract. If he had 1 year left on his contract or 6 months left on his contract, be a little bit more worried, but it looks like he's not pushing for a move. I actually think it's part of the negotiation to get as much money from Newcastle United in a contract as possible. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. But again, if you've enjoyed this video, please smash up those like buttons, share this video, please subscribe, because I've get a lot of viewers that aren't subscribers. So come on, if you're watching the show, please subscribe. And until next time, there's only one thing left to say. Away the lads.